It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
All right, so I've got Matt Rayner on the phone. You're from the UK, right? Like, what part of the UK are you from?
Originally, not that far outside of London, but I've
Okay.
moved around a bit. I live in Lincolnshire currently, which is a bit sleepy. Everything's done at their own pace up here. It's nice than being down south because it's a real sort of mad race down south. The further south you go, the worse the driving gets.
I have no idea. I'm Googling Lincolnshire right now to get an idea.
It's one of
Okay.
the biggest counties in the UK, and it also has, funnily enough, fun fact, the busiest port in the UK via tonnage because it's a what they call ro-ro, roll on, roll off. So we do a lot of trade with Scandinavia and Holland through that port, and that's where I tend to work out of a lot.
Okay. So this is a couple, 3 hours north of London. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah, it has the A1 that runs through it, which is the major route north out of London. It's an old Roman road originally. You'll find a lot of roads and that will be based on Roman roads and that. The A5 was a Roman road, the A1, other ones like that that tend to branch out. And then it gets to Scotland where they just decided they're all barbarians and there's just sort of built a wall to keep them up there.
Right, right.
If you're from America, you're very used to seeing highways and that. You can go to some parts of the UK where there is no highway. Like Norfolk has no motorway, highway at all. And some of the roads, which is quite funny, Wiltshire's another one like this, where I've seen videos of Americans and they say, how is this like a national road? And it's so narrow and it's 60 miles an hour, which is our national speed limit. And you've got cars zipping about left, right, and center, and that you're inches, centimeters, or inches, like half an inch off the trees and the hedges that are on the edge of the road. Like I don't like driving in Wiltshire because it's really narrow. Like I've been on unnamed roads in Lincolnshire that are a lot wider than national routes in Wiltshire. Lovely place, just not taking a truck down.
Right, right. Yeah, I went to university for 1 year in Ireland. I was in Cork and I'd rent cars on the weekend to go driving around. And yeah, that kind of reminds me of how you discussed it. Some of the roads in Ireland that were air quotes, major roads, and you've got stone walls on each side, no shoulder, and barely enough room for two cars. And yeah, it's just the normal speed limit. Like this is okay.
Oh yeah, Ireland is actually one of the few countries in Europe I have not visited. I have not driven in
Really, right next door.
because I never had the opportunity to do any work out there. Because when I was on music, it was all the music touring, so we went to all sorts of cities. My first experience driving in another country was into France, and they sent me to Paris. And Paris is an experience. Like just driving, because obviously we drive right-hand drive over here.
Yep.
I was driving in a right-hand drive truck on the right-hand side of the road.
So you're
So
sitting
I'm
on the
on the
shoulder line.
wrong, yeah. And the Parisians are, well, they make everybody else in the world outside of like Bangkok or India look tame. They show no fear whatsoever. They'll cut you up, they'll do whatever, but most Europeans, they'll cut you up and disappear. They've got places to be, things to do. You're in the way.
Yeah.
They'll get round you and they're off straight down the road. Because I prefer driving in Europe than I do driving here.
Yeah, my wife and I went to Paris a couple years ago, and there was more than one Uber ride in Paris that we were certain we were not gonna make it to the end of that ride. The people were nuts.
No, they are. I've driven in Russia.
Really?
Yeah.
Truck?
That
What, truck in Russia?
yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
The truck I've done to St. Petersburg, which is beautiful. It is an absolutely stunning city. Moscow, didn't really feel Moscow as much, but if I ever could have the chance to go back to Russia, I would go back to St. Petersburg because they call it the Venice of the North. And I've got pictures of the canals and everything they have in there. And the water is like almost jet black. It's a really, really nice city. The people are really nice as well. I missed the chance of going up in an old Soviet military helicopter as well. I didn't realize that was a thing. Otherwise, I would have done that.
Were you over in St. Petersburg when you were doing the music tour stuff?
Yes, it was part of the music tour, and we went through the Estonian border because we did various stops around Europe. But because Europe is split between Europe, the European Union, and inside the European Union, you've got something called Schengen, which is
Hmm.
borderless travel, but not every country is part of Schengen. So some countries have border control, others don't. So we had to, and we had an American band, we had Disturbed with us. So we had American documentation, Swiss documentation, because we had equipment from Switzerland, as well as equipment from the UK, which was part of the EU at the time. So we had three different documents, and they weren't like single pages; they were wadges of what they call a carnet, which is allows for international travel. And we had to go through the Russian border through Estonia. Now, the Estonian side is all electronic, but the Russian side isn't. And it is kind of strange when you're trying to explain to a Russian border guard some of the documentation via a Polish, your double driver, your second driver, who's Polish, who also speaks Russian. That is an experience, but we managed to get through there. 6.5 hours, which is very short for a Russian trip into Russia. Sometimes they can take up to 2 days, depending on how awkward they want to be. But I don't know, because in America, you've got the states. I would imagine the states function like Schengen. So you just drive across the border, and the rules of the road might change, the speed limits might change, signs might change. But generally speaking, you don't stop.
Yeah, I mean, we have ports of entry that, they'll have a weigh station and they might check your logbook or the tacky for you guys. I mean, not so much anymore with everybody being on electronic devices. I mean, normally they're just weighing you. They've got scanners now and devices that communicate with the scale and tell them, hey, are you a well-run trucking company or are you kind of shady and tend to fail inspections? And then you have a greater chance of being pulled around back and inspected. But if you're with a company that's pretty well on the up and up, normally it's a weigh in motion setup and you just roll across it or just get bypassed altogether with your little transponder.
So is that like when you roll across, say, for example, say you're in Arizona, and
Yep.
then you move uh, to the next state. I'm trying to remember my map of the US now.
Yeah, like New Mexico. Yep.
Yeah, so say you're rolling from Arizona into New Mexico. So when you roll across state lines, you can just carry on rolling if without like there's no like border control across the road, like you cannot
No,
proceed. Well,
no.
so it's very similar to what they have in Europe, Schengen. Now, when I was doing it, I would leave. I would have to show my passport at Dover because that was where we did also border control because the UK was not part of Schengen. But I did one trip. I did Dover to Stuttgart in Germany, down to Barcelona, and then back up to Berlin again. And once I got over out off the ferry at Calais, I never saw a border control point in those three countries. I did France or four countries: France, Belgium, Germany, Germany back to France, down to Spain, Spain back to France, back to Germany again. And it was quite bizarre when you think about it. It's the entirety of Europe, but there's no stopping. There's no border control points. There are checkpoints that the trucking, whatever the equivalent of this, I don't know, you have like a state troopers or something. But
Yeah.
each country has a department that specializes in looking after and going over commercial vehicles. In the UK, it's called the DVSA,
Yep.
Drivers and Vehicle Standards Agency, and they're responsible for administering checks on the road, commercial vehicles, make sure they're all compliant, records, stuff like that. And if they find anything they don't like, obviously, then they can investigate further. But outside of those, there's really not anything in Europe like that. And I like that because I can go from 3 or 4 different countries in a day and not stop once outside of my mandatory breaks, which is quite fun actually. I miss doing that. I miss driving on the continent.
So now do your drive just solely within the UK now?
Yes, I do predominantly what we call ferry work, which is trailers that come in from Europe as like just standalone trailers. They get loaded, they get taken to a dock, they get loaded onto a boat, sail across the North Sea, and they get dropped off. They get taken off the boat. We go in, pick them up, do the delivery, do any collections that need going on, send them back to the dock, and off they go again, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. So I deal with that. So it's all European trailers for us.
Gotcha.
Because when you were over here, the trailers that we have here are different from the ones they use in Europe. I don't know if you noticed.
No, I didn't know that.
Well, the ones in Europe, I do believe it's a legal requirement to have wooden slats or metal slats that run down the length of the trailer inside the curtains, because we predominantly in Europe we use curtain siders for transport because they are very versatile rather than your box fans and that, whereas
Yeah.
America they tend to use more box fans. Your curtain siders in inverted commas tend to get used like for coverage, like on steel. I've seen a lot of them. You might
Yeah.
have the odd. I did a brief look at some of your trailers. They
Yeah, we
have
have
a
some
curtain
curtain
sider,
sides, but mostly like my brother, he pulls the curtain side, but our curtain sides, like the whole thing slides forward or backwards. It
like a whole
doesn't
cover.
lift up. Yeah, the whole cover basically collapses like an accordion to one side or the other. Where the ones that I saw in the UK, they go up. You slide them up to be able to
Ah,
access the freight,
no,
right?
the ones over here they slide uh either backwards or forwards, and then you can load from both
Okay.
sides. So you can do like because of the nature of the size of our country, and it's just easier for um you can fit all sorts of stuff. You can load. I've loaded on a curtain sider. I've loaded steel pipe that comes in through the roof, so the whole roof slides up. Um, then I've also gone and loaded. So I've loaded steel, and then I've gone to a place, tipped that steel. I've then gone round the corner, and I've loaded pallets of mustard on the same trailer,
Yeah.
and that's why they get used a lot over here because they're incredibly versatile pieces of equipment. But you do see box vans occasionally, but they tend to be used for like mail. There's a lot of mail Amazon trailers. There's a lot of Amazon trailers now
Yeah.
that use those. But sometimes it's nice to have a box fan. So you don't have to open the curtains, which are great fun in the winter when they're incredibly hot in the summer when you're working in them. And in the winter time, when the wind is bad, sometimes I get to a place and it'd be like, oh, go in this big yard somewhere, go over there, drive and open your curtains. I take one look at it. I went, no. Like, why not? I said, because I'll be flying off with it. It'll go on the roof. And I've had, where was I? I was doing paper reels. Now, paper reels, big 3-ton reels of paper that go on these trailers. And I had to unload it on a farm because they were using it as storage. And I'm stood inside this barn with the forklift driver watching the curtain flail around like a headless snake in the wind. And I said to forklift driver, I said, "You want to go and grab it then?" And he looked at me and told me to, yeah, he used rather expletive language for that.
Yeah, so they let you haul paper in a curtain side.
Yeah, they have to be strapped. We have we have inspection checks, but because of we have no or very little in the way of height limit here, our motorway bridges or highway bridges are normally taller than 16 foot 6 inches. So we run trailers that are up to 16 foot tall, high.
Interesting.
So we can load like reels of paper. When I worked for a certain company, our standard trailer height was 4.7 meters. Now, if you bear with me, and I will convert that to imperial because it wasn't written on the headboard of the trailer. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. 4.7 meters. That is 15 foot 4 inches tall. So our trailers were running around 15 and a half feet tall. And I've seen some of your bridges, your highway bridges in America are like 13 foot.
Yeah, our truck
So some
standard height for us is 13.6, and there's plenty of spots where you're not getting through with 13 foot 6 inches.
and we run double deck trailers as well, which is odd because in Europe, a lot of Europe, particularly Germany, their maximum height limit is 4 meters, which is like 14, 13, 9, 14 foot at a push. And then that lets into a whole different section of rules and regulations, mega trailers, lifting roofs. It depends on how long you want to talk for.
So you had to have some sort of equipment that would universally go, well, I mean, you were talking about even just all the way to Russia, like going through multiple countries and into
Yes,
Russia. Like you got to have a piece of equipment that you know is going to make it through all the weird variations of uh,
a lot of
limits.
a lot of the time, the particularly the foreign drivers and that they will all run equipment that is under the 4 meter mark, because some countries are 4 meters, some countries are not. It's just easier to run it as 4 meters. The UK is an outlier because we have no such height limit. There are bridges around the country that are less than 16'6", but they're clearly marked. In Europe, I think Poland, Germany is certainly a 4 meter height limit on a standard truck. So bridges are 4 meters or less, generally speaking, out there, which is why when we ran in Europe, we ran on what they call low ride, which is a mega trailer, and it's to do with volume. So you lower the bed of the trailer and you increase the volume of the trailer and still be within that 4 meter height limit. So they run around on little wheels in comparison to a standard truck, smaller tires, and they have lifting roofs. They're used predominantly in automotive with stillages to get the maximum amount out of the trailer. Because I've had trailers when I've done deliveries to Nissan and Stellantis, the stillages are all the way to the roof, and on each corner is a handle that you pump that lifts the roof up so they
Hmm.
can actually get the stuff out from inside, because it will go all the way to the roof. You might have maybe quarter of an inch of a gap between the roof of the trailer and the actual stillage of the stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. We don't really have it. I don't think we have anything really comparable to that here. I mean, we do have some trailers that are like you said that have smaller tires, so they have increased capacity, like moving vans and even some of the enclosed vehicle hauling trailers. I mean, most of our vehicle hauling trucks are open, no enclosure, but we do have some for usually for fancier cars or hauling them from car shows or big auctions. But yeah, to my knowledge, none of them are adjustable.
We have, because our car haulers, do you have the ones that car haulers that sit over the cab?
Yes.
So yeah, so you're the same, because there's always a big thing with car transporter drivers is they have some of the smallest cabs that you have to like live in, some of these guys.
Yep.
And I spoke to one and I was like, "Oh, how do you get dressed in the morning?" He goes, "I have to lie on my bed." I was like, I couldn't live in it. And I live in essentially what's a rabbit hutch, and that's a full-size truck, let alone one of those. And they're
Yep.
also the longest. They're different length limits for car transporters. So trying to get one of those into a parking area can be interesting. And they overhang as well. So they
Yeah.
overhang on the front, overhang on the rear. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, those guys here make really good money. I mean, because they've got to load them all, they got to get them on there just right and not damage anything. They're getting 7, 8 cars or trucks on there. And like you said, that they're usually flat top sleepers for us on our conventional trucks. It's the smallest sleeper. It's the sleeper like that people had back in the 70s, right? A coffin sleeper that was, you could you could lie down flat on your back, and that's about as much width as there was for it.
I've seen them load, because the different ports in the UK have different cars that come in. And where I do a lot of work, and Mercedes bring their cars in through that port. So I see them load Mercedes cars and that, and BMWs just down the road, and I'm watching them, and they've got the deck is all down, and they're
Hmm.
driving this car up, and clang, 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 and they start going up, 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 and it's like almost like a 40-degree angle. And I was like, yeah, that's not for me. It's really not for me. I don't like looking up at the sky out of my car.
Right. And then it's, getting out of the car and back off of the trailer without, it blows my mind there's not more accidents. People falling off these things and hurting
Oh yeah,
themselves.
they're definitely like I've got. massive respect for car transport drivers because like some of the places that they put car dealerships and you're expected to, particularly the ones in London that you've got to drive to, like your big names and like Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari, and they pick a place right in the middle of town and you have
Right.
to try and get it there. And it's like, yeah, nah. I've driven in London. I don't like driving in London. I can do it, but it's just something about that city. It's not the worst in the UK to drive in, but you have to be a bully to drive in London because if you're not a bully, you don't get anywhere. But because
Yeah,
everyone's a bully, yeah, it's cutthroat.
right. Yeah, it kind of sounds like New York City for us.
Oh,
You got to
I
be
couldn't
pushy
drive.
and aggressive, and even if, I grew up in the Midwest, so we're kind of more laid back and not that mentality, but you got to turn it on when you get to the big cities in America. You're just like you said, not going to get anything done.
There was a video I watched of a chap who was trying to make a turn in, it was like an intersection, and the cars parked right up to the intersection. And I'm watching this chap trying to make this turn in his truck. And it's just like, I just couldn't do it. I just keep driving straight. Just keep driving straight. And there's another chap, I don't know if he's still doing it or not, but he had a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a maverick. He drove a low loader picking up plant machinery in New York City itself. And like, Jesus, I thought I've seen like crazy cities in Europe. Like the parking in New York City is unreal. Like they just park on a corner.
Yep, they park all the way around the corner.
For me in the UK, parking on a corner on a junction intersection is illegal. So the cars get moved. Now, I'm just watching like cars parked there and they're double parked as well.
Hmm.
It's like, I just makes me so, I just triggered my anxiety. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. People who take trucks into New York City, fair play to you guys because I
I
can't do it.
I did it when I was young. Used to go in there and we'd deliver in there. There's a place called Hunts Point Market that we would go into to deliver. And I mean, it's kind of in the bowels of the city, right? Like they make videos like movies about what it was like on Hunts Point Boulevard, like with the pimps and the hookers and the drug addicts. Like
So
it's a
it's been
gnarly
there for a
part
long
of town.
time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been the market. I mean, part of the market was like a military depot back in the 1800s. It's we don't have much old stuff here in America, but that's about as old as it gets. Um, so yeah, and then we'd go pick up. We call it LTL or less than a truckload. Multiple pickups around New York City and all the five boroughs, and then get out of there and I can't, like, I would never do it today. I can't believe I did it back then. And between that and the low bridges and the parking, like you said, and the traffic, like, I don't know what. We did it for the money. It always paid good. Nobody else wanted to do it, so you did the
That's why
work
it
nobody
paid
else
good.
wanted. Yeah.
Like there's another video, and this guy, he's come in from the wrong end, and this loading bay is like right out on the road, and he has to swing across like like multi-direction traffic and try and back in. I'm like, you wouldn't like. I've had tough reverses off of main roads and like over here, but that is just. I say I take my hat off to those guys because they are just on another level. People who
Yeah.
regularly drive trucks in New York cities have must be made of sterner stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember I had one in Detroit where I got back in the day before we had cell phones and you'd have to call them up from a payphone and get directions from somebody at the warehouse this guy told me. And it's a big road, right? It's 3, 4 lanes going each direction and it's not a freeway, it's just a city street that has lots of lanes. Speed limit's probably 50 miles an hour or so. And he's like, okay, when you get to this particular street, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into the opposite lane of traffic because you have to back in from the wrong direction or you never get into the dock, and you're gonna have to go about a mile down the wrong way of 4 lanes, and then you're gonna see our driveway, and then you can pull up and cut across all 4 lanes, basically diagonally, and then back into our dock. That's how you gotta do it, and you've got anxiety the whole way going, what have I got myself into? And this load only pays $700. And But you
start
do it,
questioning
right? You
things.
just do it. Yeah, you start questioning a lot of your choices in life at that point.
We have we have that. But it's less the city stuff. It's more the rural. Like I have taken like deliveries to farms and other places, and they're lovely, picturesque parts of the country, but you should not be taking a truck anywhere near them. And like you get down there and you meet someone coming the other way, a local, so they're bombing down the road because they know the road.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm doing 20 mile an hour because I've got hedges on either side coming up to me mirrors. And next thing I know, I get this local just come roaring up in front of me, slam his anchors on, and then look at me like, huh? It's like, yeah, I'm doing a delivery. And he comes up and said, where are you going? I was like, to the farm. Oh, I'm like, well, yeah, how else do you expect stuff to get around?
Right.
So the local the locals who've been there for ages, who have grown up down there are nice. It's the ones that move from the cities that they're the ones that are the issue because they they don't seem to understand it. I had a woman that I had to make a reverse half a mile to the nearest sort of pulling place we could get past. And she's all huff and puff. It's like, what are you doing down here? It's like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm delivering to the farm that's been here for 800 years. So, like, surely you should know. Like, you see tractors running up and down here because I was taking fertilizer, bags of fertilizer, and that. It's like, surely you know trucks have to come down here. There's a farm that lives. I live near a farm, so there's going to be
Right.
farm-related traffic.
Right.
But because of the nature of our country, the roads are narrow. They're not as narrow and as crazy as they are in Italy. Like I've heard some real horror stories of like places in Italy, like up in the mountains, and there's like a what are they slaughterhouses up in the mountains and that. And like I've seen some of the switchback roads in Italy, and it's like, yeah, that's not for me. I'll stick to my motorways.
Yeah. I remember I was driving in Spain, this is probably 20 years ago, in a car, and I ended up in a going up a mountain road, and I got to the town and there was a gate across the road, the main road. And so I parked there and I'm looking around trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do? There's a gate across the main road and it's locked. It's got a padlock on a chain and a padlock. And eventually somebody poked their head out the window and they said, yeah, he's gone for the day. He'll be back tonight and then he can open the gate up for you. And I'm like, what in the world? How
Oh,
is this?
that's the Spanish. Like they run on their own time. When I was in Spain, like inside the major cities, it's fine, but when you go
Hmm.
sort of further out, everyone just does their own thing, and they get things done when they want to get things done.
Yeah, and there's not, I mean, Americans are kind of known for this, right? Of just their, I don't know, driven nature. That's probably the nicest way to put it. A bit of a frantic, just always in a hurry, always just whatever it takes to get things done. And it becomes a real culture clash really quick with especially, Latin American countries here in the Western Hemisphere that derive a lot of theirs from the Spanish mentality of, oh, there's more important things than that, like
Yeah,
siesta.
they do have a different outlook on. There's a lot of that in Europe, particularly with like trucking and stuff like that, because in the UK it's very go 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 go, but in Europe it's a bit different. Like you'll see guys they're on their break, but they've got in their trucks a whole full-on pantry of food, and they're out there. They've got like a gas bottle stove, almost essentially a bit like a barbecue, and they're cooking stuff and that. It's a lot of the Eastern Europeans. They tend to cook their own food. And because they live in their trucks and they have their own trailers, they don't swap them or anything. They've got like I've seen them. They got like a pallet locker, which is a big metal, essentially a box that's underslung underneath the trailer. And this guy's pulled it down and he's got his cook set up and he's got his pantry, so he's got all his sauces and spices and everything else. And then he's got his fridge in the truck as well, so he cooks meat. And sitting there eating my McDonald's. I'm thinking, I'm doing something wrong here. Like this guy's out here cooking himself a proper meal, and I'm eating fast food. Something's not
Yeah,
quite right.
he's running a caravanning trip over there.
Some of them do. There's a guy on Instagram. He's an Italian fella. He's used to drive. He's had two companies now. He's on his way to his third, but he's always like he never has any fast food. If he's gone for like to a restaurant, it's a proper restaurant. He'll find out local. He'll park up somewhere locally, and he'll go and seek out a local restaurant, and he'll like whatever like the food that he posts is just like wow. I know it's Italy and they love their food out there, but that's a whole other level. And then if he can't do that when he's not around there, he'll cook himself. He'll I've done like steak, pasta, various other Italian dishes, and that like all fresh ingredients and everything. I'm sitting there thinking, like, if he can do it, why can't I do it?
Yeah.
But then I don't have the room in my truck because I don't have the space on because I don't keep the same trailer. I change my trailer almost every day. So because I'm not out all week either. Whereas the guys in Europe, particularly the long haul stuff, they're out there for months at a time. My job is Monday to Friday. So I leave my house on the Monday and I don't get back till the Friday. But some of those guys I've spoken to, they're out for 3.5, 4 months at a time. They
Wow.
go back home for maybe a week and then they do it all again. It's like what you guys do out there, where you can be out for months on end without even seeing your home state, let alone your hometown.
Yeah. So you're sleeping in the truck
Yes,
4 or 5 nights a week?
yes.
Okay.
They're not like because of our rules and regs and that, that I do envy the space that you guys have out there. I had a look at Volvo's latest VNL,
Mm-hmm.
the big one, and I'm thinking, wow, that's essentially a camper for us over here. And I'm looking at it; it's got a microwave and a full size, a big fridge, whereas we've just got a drawer that comes out under the bed and that. And it's just thinking, it's like that's on a whole nother level.
The late 90s, we really started to get bigger cabs. We've got the integrated sleepers, we've got the stand-up sleepers. So you've got 70-inch bunks. I mean, the ones that are sky rises, they go 8 feet tall from the floor of the bunk all the way to the roof with the double bunks, or you can have additional shelving or whatever you've got. Yeah, it's quite a lot more comfortable than the stuff I started off with even back in the 90s.
Did you, when you came over here, did you get to actually like get in a European truck?
Yeah, I got in one of the Mercedes Benz over at the truck show. I went to the Birmingham Commercial Vehicle Show.
What did you think of the interior?
Yeah, it was it was so small. I mean, it reminded me, so when I started in a cab over engine truck um that had about that size bunk, and my dad had a couple trucks that were about that size. So I mean, I would it wasn't like I'd never been in something that size. It's just I hadn't been in something that size in 20 some years, right?
But it's all, particularly the latest one. Does it was it the very latest model that they're doing? Because they're in the process of going over onto the new one. Did it looks a bit like a fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so because they've changed the interior slightly on that. Because I've had a Mercedes. I did 2 years in one with the mirrorless
Yep.
setup on it. That was something to get used to, going from mirrors to mirrorless. Because I know, is it Freightliner? Because they're owned by Mercedes. They
Yep.
have a mirrorless version now, and I think Volvo are doing the same thing. How are you guys accepting of the mirrorless setup versus mirrors?
Yeah, I don't know of anybody who I don't have any friends or anybody who's run one yet. I mean, that technology was kind of brought forth in America by a company, not a manufacturer, but they were selling it as like an add-on, and it it didn't have a lot of take rate to it. But yeah, now the newer like the new Volvos and the new Max and the new Freightliners, they have them. So now some people are, and a lot of drivers who are company paid drivers, employees, they're going to start getting them whether they ask for them or not. So we'll see what the chatter is as more people get exposed to them. I was just reading a link on Reddit about people talking about their preferences because it seems pretty common that a lot more trucks are getting the mirrorless or the digital screen instead of the mirrors, and Seems like, I don't know, but there's plenty of people who are like, yeah, you get used to it. I mean, it's kind of weird at first, but you get used to it. Then you had some folks who you could tell had been around for a while and they were, let's say, less enthusiastic and they just soon have their mirrors back. Have
For
you used them?
yeah, my I got because the Mercedes was the first to market the Actros, which is what Mercedes have. That was the first to come to market with the mirrorless design. They've all subsequently done it. Volvo, MAN, Scania, DAF, even now Iveco have done it. So all followed suit. Now, they've said that it saves on average up to 2% on your fuel. Now, if you've got a fleet of trucks, 2% is a lot of money over the year.
Right.
That's what they were quoting. But as a driver, they have their plus points. Like I can have my curtain shut and they've got little cutouts in the curtain so I can put the curtain behind the mirror. So if, for example, I hear a noise or something, there was a button on the back of the back wall of the cab that I could press that and it would light up the screens and I could see down both sides without having to peer out of the curtain,
Hmm.
which was good for me.
Right.
Obviously, I wouldn't get out because I'm not risking my life for, I don't know, a load of cereal, for example. If they want
Right.
it, they can have it. I'm only paid for sleeping in the truck. I'm not paid to be a security guard. And at night time, if you've got drivers who have their full beams on, high beams, whatever you guys call them,
Yeah.
main beams, the big brights and that, or the lights are angled poorly. In a mirror, it reflects, but on a screen, it doesn't. So that was quite good. And if you paid for the option, because it's a Mercedes and everything is an option, they actually had night vision mode. So you could actually reverse at night in a place that was dark. And funnily enough, where we dropped our trailers on our offsite storage yard was completely pitch black. So trying to reverse at night there with mirrors was an absolute pain in the rear end because you couldn't see anything. You put your fog lights on, you just put everything to try and make it a little bit brighter so you could actually see what you were doing. So they helped. But the biggest thing I found with the mirrors is that the left-hand mirror, the offside mirror, that would track the rear of the trailer. So I didn't have to do a blindside reverse because it followed the rear of the trailer. Because obviously with a mirror, after you get to a certain point, it disappears and you're
Yeah.
blind. But that was really, really good. It really did help some of the places that we were putting trailers. You do need that. And it worked. When I went back to mirrors, when I changed companies, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to learn how to blindside again.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention that it tracks the end of your trailer automatically, and I was like, well, that's pretty sweet. Like some in the 90s, some of our trucks started getting where you could it was electronic that you could rotate your mirror, but it wasn't automatic. Like you had to fiddle with it yourself while you're trying to back up and keep tapping the button up or down to get it to move right or left in your offside mirror. So it was better than having to go put it in neutral and stick your head over and see if you could try to see out the other window and then put it back in reverse and go a little bit further. So yeah, that seems like a really cool
They
feature.
did take some getting used to. When my second day that I had it, I had a delivery and they have finger bays, which are bays inside of the warehouse.
Hmm.
And I could not line this thing up at all. I've been driving it. I've been driving for a good while, like pretty decent at reversing, and I was looking like I'd only just passed my test. I was all over the place. I ended up at the because it's a current side. They just tipped it outside, but 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I was battling this, and there was too far to the left and then too far to the right, and trying to line it up because the mirrors were because it wasn't the same. And I think I'm just driving myself insane. I like didn't like it, and I hated the mirror cams and stuff. But gradually, I got used to them. But they really did come into their own for roundabouts or traffic circles, as you guys call them. But because it's the big feature of our road network. But with a mirror on a truck that we have over here is you're basically your view to the right and to the left are blocked so by the mirrors. So cars routinely, and I have had it where multiple and no end of times where oh it's clear, I'm about to go. Next thing you know, this car appears from round the mirror.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, there was a guy already on the roundabout. Oh, good job I stopped. But without the mirror being there, because the camera sits above the door, completely out of your vision, it was great because I could see coming up to roundabout, nothing there, straight go. Didn't have to worry about stopping or anything. That's where they really did help. And that's where I do miss them the most because otherwise it's just like a giant wardrobe mirror hanging off the side of your door and you're having to peek round.
Yeah, a lot of the comments I read, the hardest part getting used to with the digital mirror is backing up in a straight line and, and trying to
Yes,
line yourself up in a parking spot or in a loading dock or something.
I found myself leaning out the window a lot more and looking at because I remember being told by a driver when I first started, because I was backing into a space and he was watching me, he was all over the place. And he said, "What mirror are you lining yourself up on?" And I went, the left one, because obviously right hand drive. And he said, "No, no, no. Ignore that mirror because you're never going to be straight in that mirror. Always go off your driver's side." And that has always stuck with me ever
Right.
ever since. So as long as I'm in a straight line, if I look down there and I look down at the line, I'm in a straight line on my driver's side, I'm straight in the bay. Whereas if I line it up on my left hand side, I'm not going to be straight. And that took basically a relearn when I had the mirror cams, because
Hmm.
they didn't sit right. That the view was different because it's a screen
Yeah.
and it's a camera. So I had to relearn essentially how to reverse to line stuff up because I put it on a bay and I get a knock on the door and said, "Drive, you need to move." So, what do you mean? And I go down the back and I'm about 6 inches off center of the bay and they can't get the ramp on. It's like, oh, I thought I was straight. Obviously not.
Well, we were talking before I hit record, we were talking a little bit about truck stops and stuff. And one thing, and you're out on the road quite a bit, so you've got to find places to park. I did notice that there quite a few places, like just on the side of the road, where there was a cutoff that looked like it was deliberately designed to be parking spots for trucks.
Laybys traditionally, and this is when the rules of like it's illegal to what they call wild camp, which is out like camp anywhere essentially.
Hmm.
Now, trucking, if you want to be picky, could potentially fall into wild camping, but nobody enforces it because truck drivers like you need to park up. But I don't park in laybys as a point because they are your prime target to get your diesel stolen and or your load nicked as well. Like certain areas of the country are notorious for it. You don't you've unless you're running on fumes and you have nothing on the trailer, like then park up there. But the other thing I don't like is trucks whizzing past at night. I was like,
Right.
nah, no, I'll park in them like if I haven't got a choice and I've run out of time. Like, but that's very few and far between. And I kick off like royally if I have to. I much prefer truck stops, obviously, less service stations because they're noisy and they're expensive. Industrial estates and areas, a lot more are getting like you can't park there because drivers being drivers ruin it for everybody by leaving rubbish and other stuff around.
Yeah.
But you still can park on a lot of them and that. And by and large, I've had better night's sleep on industrial estates than I have elsewhere, even while loaded.
Yeah, it looked like the places. So I went down there to that, what was it called? Lincoln Farm.
Yes, Lincoln
And there
Farm,
was
yeah.
another one kind of down that way. It looked like they were both charged to park.
Yes, a lot of places are, but we have over here what they call Snap. Now, Snap came about as a way of drivers not having to pay. So essentially, it bills the company. The company have an account. So when you roll into Lincoln Farm, you walk up to the counter inside, and they'll say, obviously when you order your food and that, so how are you paying? Snap or cash or card? And you say Snap. So they'll take your registration number of the truck. They'll put that into a computer, and it'll come up with. So let's say, for example, it's FX, I don't know, 25 ABG. And they'll go da 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 da, and that'll be like, oh, you work for Joe Blogs Trucking. And they'll be like, yep, and they'll ask you for your name. They'll put that down. And when at the end of the month, your boss will get the bill. So all the times that his drivers have stayed in parking will come up on that invoice. So Snap take a bit off the top of it as their payment and that, but it just means that the driver doesn't have to worry about forking out for parking, because we get it paid back as expenses, but that's a week or so of you being out of pocket. Whereas on Snap, you don't have to pay at all.
So you guys it's not coming out of your pocket then to park if you've got to park in one of those places.
I would never work for a firm that expects drivers to pay for parking. I'm not paying to park the boss's truck. No, thank you.
Yeah, because that was my first question. I went into a couple of places and I asked them at the Hollies up there, and it was expensive, right? It was like 30 pounds or something like that.
A lot of the time you get a meal voucher. Same with Europe as well.
Yeah, they did say that you get like a few, like 5 pounds for voucher or something like that, 6 pounds.
The big difference there's a lot more free parking in Europe, but particularly Germany, because it's where it's located, is a major transit, because it sits right in the middle of Western and Eastern Europe. So it gets a lot of traffic, and the free parking, like if you're not in there by 3:30, 4 o'clock, you ain't getting in. And they will park every which way. And I've rolled into a service station at night, because we were running at night on the music. And I come round coming in a little bit hotter than I should have been. And next thing I know, I see these big white doors of a reefer fridge. And I have to stand on the brakes, because I thought, oh, you're not supposed to be parked there. And they're all parking around the fuel pumps, bending them round corners, up the curbs and everything. That's why everywhere in France has got like meter high curbs to stop drivers from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, parking, like you will get in Europe, your paid parking, that generally tend to be better. Like you'll get like a parking might be 30 euros, but you'll get like a 25 euro voucher for food. And it's almost like a flipping pub someplace, particularly in Germany. There's a really good one at Gieselwind, actually, where I've stayed at before. It's essentially a pub that's got a big parking area for trucks and a fuel station.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's a big debate here. A bunch of our truck stop chains have switched over to a lot of paid parking, and they've converted at least part of their lot to paid parking because there's a big parking shortage all over the country typically. I work my day job now is I work for one of the big truck stop chains in IT. And our truck stop chain has just always been of the mindset that we're never going to charge for parking. So we don't charge for parking, but then it fills up, right? I mean, it's just packed out, and there's a lot of make your own parking spot. Some of it's like you said, it's dangerous. Some of the places that people do it, is on the side of the road or on an off ramp to the freeway, and then they get issued citations, or you don't have any services. That's not any fun to spend 10 hours on the side of a freeway waiting for to get hours back so you can go find a place to go to the bathroom properly or get food. That's one of the biggest challenges we have here, especially around big cities. Is there's just nowhere near enough parking to support all the trucks that are required to bring everything they need.
It's a tale as old as time. Is they want the stuff that's on your truck, they just don't want you.
Right.
There's a big argument over here from truckers. It's like these big developments for warehousing, because there's a lot going up, is that they should be providing an area for truck parking, because a lot of them are, quote, private land. So they'll give you a parking ticket it's like 100, 200, like 120 quid, 125 quid or something like that, pounds, just for parking on there overnight. And it's like, well, why don't you provide parking? Oh, that's not our problem. But it
is your problem.
You want the stuff,
right?
You want the stuff that we carry, but you just don't want us. But it's just like everything. It's people on the road. It's like they don't want trucks on the road because we get in the way. We're slow. Yeah. We're big and heavy, and everything else like that and whatnot. Yet, and I hate
you keep buying stuff, right? And you keep going on Amazon and buying the stuff that means I gotta come here.
Yeah, it's like, and I don't, because I know this sounds a bit like a broken record, but if every driver just literally went, I'm not going to work just 12 hours. Just, I'm not going to work for 12 hours. The supply chain would just fall over. And then people would suddenly realize just how vital trucking is. It's one of the ones that you'll never see it until it goes wrong. And
Yeah.
case in point, a little while ago, a couple of years ago, a news article was released about a potential driver shortage for fuel drivers, fuel tanker drivers. And that's turned into a month or so's panic buying of fuel. And that was manufactured. Like that was essentially fake. It was one depot in the south of the country, and it turned into a national panic buying session.
Yeah.
And like 6 o'clock in the morning, and they were queuing out of the car park at the supermarkets just for fuel.
Right.
And that was like, if every single driver just went, we're not doing anything, just 12 hours, not doing anything, that would look like child's play in comparison. But then everybody's out there going, oh, you guys have got easy jobs and this, that, and other. You sit on your bum all day, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, just, there's no consideration because they don't see what we do outside of driving. They don't
Well,
see. So go ahead.
it's funny you mentioned that, right? Because there was an article that I talked about on the podcast maybe 5, 6 weeks ago, because somebody had done some survey and just went out to non-truck driving adults and asked them questions about, would you become a truck driver? And it was like 65, 70% of them said, yeah, if the pay was right, if it was a little bit more than what I make now, I'd probably go do it. I got a great chuckle out of that. I was like, yes, this is by people who have no idea what it is that we actually go through on a daily basis. They don't realize how many hours we actually work and how aggravating it is, how physically demanding it can be, all the things. And like, yeah, there's no way 70% of you would get out and quit your job, sitting behind a desk somewhere, getting off at your scheduled time, starting at your scheduled time, all the pain and agony and irritation that goes into truck driving. 70% of you wouldn't last through the training school to get your CDL.
I don't make, like, people ask me, well, what's it like being a truck driver and that? It's like, I make no bones about it. If this job isn't for everybody, particularly if you do nights away, what we call tramping over here, because back in the day, after a week, you come out of your truck looking like a tramp. So the name stuck. So if you want to do stuff like that, it is a lifestyle, not a job. And that requires a different mentality to it, because you will get up before, and you will be at work before people are even up. Like, you will drive through towns and you'll still see people with their curtains closed asleep.
Yeah.
You will finish work when those same people will be at home getting ready for bed. If you are prepared to do that and you are prepared to put up with the long hours, you'll do fine. The other thing is, how do you deal with stress? Because you've got the stress from the office hounding you. You've got the stress from other road users who don't know how to act around you. You've got the stress of people loading and unloading and everything else. If at the end of the day, and you can let all that go, you'll be fine as a truck driver. But if you can't and you hold on to it, you'll just end up with a heart attack.
Yeah.
Because
burn you out.
this job, it is quote unquote easy in inverted commas, but it can be incredibly stressful. And that's what people miss. They see the fact that we're sat behind the steering wheel, and to drive a truck in a straight line is relatively simple. It's the other stuff that you have to contend with. That's what makes this job stressful and hard. The unloading procedures, the backing up, the strapping down of loads, the paperwork. If you're doing international, you've got customs and everything else as well to deal with. You've got law enforcement, you've got the driver rules enforcement, and you've got traffic and people cutting in front of you and everything because they don't want to be behind a truck and that. And that's where this job sucks. But
Yeah.
some days where everything goes well, the music on the radio is great, the weather is nice, the places that you go to. Oh yeah, just bang it over there, drive, get your curtains open, and we'll have it off. Everything just falls into place. It's the best job in the world.
It
It
is.
really is the best job in the world. But when things start going wrong, oh, they go wrong in a big way.
Yep.
But I won't
Well,
make any bones about, like, because I've had people like forklift drivers, they say, "Oh, what's it like being a lorry driver?" I'll tell them the truth because I don't want to sell people on a lie. You will have days where this job is great. You will have days where you just want to chuck it
yep.
because just it's just everything's just falling apart. But if you can handle that and you can handle everything else, you'll do fine as a truck driver. If you don't want a social life.
Yeah, that's for sure. It wreaks havoc on your life too, your relationships, all kinds of stuff.
There are people that I know that can make it work and they have made it work, but has to be committed from both sides. And the other thing that turns a lot of people off from truck driving is a lot of companies will require 2 years experience. So you've got these people that they paid their money to pass their tests, their HGV or their CDLs and that.
Yeah.
Then they go to a company and go, "I'm a brand new pass. I want to come and work for you." "Sorry, mate, can't employ you. You've got to have 2 years experience." And they keep going from company to company to company to company, and they get told the same thing, one after the other. "Can't take you on. You don't have the experience." "How can I get experience if you won't give me a job?" So they end up out these two-bit cowboy outfits who don't run legally and then ask the drivers to do insane things because they're new, they don't know any better. And
Yeah.
they go, "I'm being worked like a dog for very little money. Sod this, I'm off." So
Right.
that's another one crashed out. And like, how are you going to replace an aging workforce? Because you guys have got the same problem that we have over here. Our truck drivers, the average age is like 55, 60-ish now.
Yeah.
That there's very little young blood coming into the industry to replace those drivers. And then these companies are going, "Oh, we've got driver shortage and that." And then you've got people going, "Oh, I've passed my test and that. Oh, sorry, we can't take you. You haven't got experience." I understand that it's a risk. And I am not immune. When I first passed my test, I did have a few bumps and scrapes and that. We all do. Like, these companies need to realize that sometimes you just have to swallow the cost of the insurance increase just to get these guys through the door. And because they're fresh, they're green, they're new, they're moldable.
Yes.
You'd much
Teach them
rather
properly.
employ, yes, much rather employ someone who's new, who doesn't know any of the bad habits, and you can teach them how to do things your company's way. A lot of the companies over here, particularly the big, what you call mega carriers, the big ones, your DHLs, your FedExes, people like big companies like that, they are very regimented. They're very strict on health and safety. They have a lot of people who have done the theory and that, but haven't actually been out there in the real world.
Hmm.
But because they've put the rules down, they're the ones you have to follow. Someone who's been doing the job 15 years is unlikely to adjust, not impossible, but unlikely to adjust to a regimented system. You have to do things the DHL way. Otherwise, they get rid of you. Some
Yeah.
drivers can. I've met plenty of drivers who used to be down the road, but now they do just local stuff. They're home every night because they can switch off. They can just go, okay. They just treat it as a job again. It's like, right, come in, get my keys because I don't get an assigned truck. I just, whatever truck's available, get my job for the day. I go and do that. I come back, put fuel in the truck, and go home again. They can do that, but there are
Right.
some drivers who can't, and they're the ones that don't like working for these big companies. They go crying to the government about, "Oh, we haven't got any drivers. Fix the problem that
Yeah.
they created."
Which is everybody wants experience. Nobody wants to be the one to provide the experience except for a few mega carriers. And we have to figure out what we're going to do about this problem because a large population of our truck drivers are aging out of the work and they're just not going to be around.
The other thing about why we can't get drivers is that because the way the insurance has changed, and that's the whole range of factors as well with changing like modern times and that, but a lot of firms, particularly the big ones, they won't let you take passengers, particularly children. So the ones that the drivers with kids, that they can't take their kids out, they can't get their kids interested in the job because like there are some that still do. Some of the smaller firms and that still I do see on occasion. I do see drivers and that, and they've got a young kid with them. It's obviously their daughter or their son in the truck with them and that. And you do see some that are completely truck mad and they will come into trucking because it's what they want to do. But the everyday bod, quote unquote, he's not gonna he's not unless he's forced into the industry, which I have spoken to people and they have been like they've been unemployed, for example, and the job center, as part of getting them back into work, they will actually pay, the government will pay for them to get their lorry license. And it it's a very polarizing subject, the driver shortage over here, because you'll get drivers that will they'll point the finger at the foreign chaps that have come in.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, it's their fault that the wages are suppressed. And other people will turn around and say, because what I say is that it's not their fault that they're working in the same industry as us. It's the people paying us that have decided that they're not going to increase the wages. They're the people at fault. But when you start going down that road, and that tends to invoke some potentially heated conversations, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
definitely. It's really at the forefront of the conversation here right now with who's been let into the United States on what visas and which CDLs are being honored from other countries. We've had a lot of fatality accidents that have happened with drivers who are here on a visa who may or may not be able to speak English. You know, you got drivers crashing into things and troopers at the scene of the accident going, "Can you read that sign right there that says slow down due to the snow or weather conditions?" And the person can't read the sign. And so, I mean, it's just been a very, to your point, a very heated topic about who's being let in to drive, how do they get in, and is this safe? Also, the kind of the financial pressure to keep the prices down on transportation costs, and also that there's an ongoing driver shortage that seems to have a cliff coming with an aging driver population.
I think a lot of it, you place the blame at certain companies, not everyone, but a lot of the bigger companies, because they don't want to pay because they've cut everything else to the bone to try and get the work. Then they cut the wages. And then that's when they go, they can't get native drivers. So they'll go, okay, we'll go to another country and bring them in. And when our minimum wage in this country is potentially 2 or 3 times the minimum wage of another country. So if I was a citizen of, let's say, country 2, and country 1 had 3 times the minimum wage, I would go and work in country 1 because I can get 3 times the salary that I would do at home. So I don't blame them for that at all. Don't blame them at all. So I place the blame at the feet of the companies who turn around and go, oh, we're not increasing wages this year. Like, or we don't think that like you guys are worth paying for because we can bring in 2 or 3 people from another country, which I think isn't right. It's not the guys that they're bringing in's fault. It's the people that are sitting at the table, the stockholders and shareholders and everything else. They're the ones to blame for all this. The people who want infinite growth in a finite world. But then that's dangerously close to political talk. And that can be very polarizing for people. I've seen plenty of folk complaining, rightfully so, about how the wages haven't increased. Cost of living's gone up, but the wages haven't gone up to match.
Yep.
And then, like you say, you've got drivers coming in who don't speak the lingo. And there was it one in Texas?
Yeah, the one in Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, that he drove into the back of, was it stationary traffic?
Yeah, traffic was parked and I don't know, he hit like 12, 14 cars or something and
Yeah, and
multiple fatalities.
yeah, I saw there was a video of the guy, and the guy's just stood there. Like, part of it's shock probably,
Yeah.
but he doesn't know where he is, and that, and then obviously all the comments underneath about like, oh, it's like he's a one of these drivers, and if these guys are coming in and they're not being held to the same standard as, say, you or I, like that is wrong because it was a big problem over here for a while because the licensing for certain countries was a lot easier. So they didn't have as much training as experience and roadcraft as a native driver would. And they were still being allowed behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And I think that is obviously going to cause rifts even more. But then you've got people like there's so many accidents that are avoidable accidents that are coming from drivers who might not be native. I'm trying to pick my words carefully here, but at the end of the day, it is all having a negative effect on our image
Correct.
because I've seen videos of drivers all over the world, and particularly in Europe and America and that, and they do silly, inconsiderate things. I know you guys have a big problem because some of you guys are limited, some of you guys aren't. You'll get two guys that'll be like zero point 0.1 of a mile an hour quicker than the other, but one of them's heavier,
Yeah.
one of them's not. So every time they go up a hill, they basically reset, and it's mile after mile after mile after mile after mile, and it just enrages people. And that's
Hmm.
another issue that we've got as an image problem. They don't want us because we leave the place a mess. We cause problems on the road when you've got drivers who won't give in and won't just go, I'm just knock it off a click. This guy's clearly quicker than me, but I won't take it off cruise control. I'll just sit there and cause problems. And then you've got drivers who are aggressive, but same time, we're professional drivers held to a
Yeah.
higher standard and all that.
Well, I think you hit on a really important point, and especially in this day and age with recording devices everywhere and then social media to amplify things and just human nature being that the negative things will get amplified much faster and much larger and more quickly than any good thing does. It really does have an impact overall on our image, and the bad things are getting out. What doesn't get talked about is all the millions of miles that got driven today where nothing bad happened and it was exceptionally well done. And we're talking about and seeing, and people who aren't in the business just see the bad things. Well,
But
Matt, I don't want to keep you up all night over there in the UK, but it's been amazing to meet you and awesome conversation. I've really enjoyed all of it. I can't thank you enough for the time that you donated here today.
I've had a good time. It's like I enjoy talking about this, and as I say, like I do enjoy the job. I do enjoy doing it, and when everything does go right, it really is the best job in the world. I don't have to put up with office politics a lot of the time. It's just me, my music, or somebody on the end of the phone. I could be on the phone to a friend of mine for hours. Couldn't do that in an office.
Well, the other thing too, I didn't know what it would be like. I mean, I've met some other drivers from around the world when I was younger, Australians mostly, but just me going up to the Hollies and sitting down in the diner and just starting up conversations with truck drivers. I don't know if other people could do that in any other industry, right? And I met a father and son there who were just amazing, and we sat there for, I don't know, an hour talking as if we were long lost friends. The people who are in this business who actually love this business and couldn't imagine doing something else because we enjoy it for the days like that, and in spite of the other days where it doesn't go nearly as well. And maybe that's part of what makes the good days feel so amazing is, it's not every day. Um, but just being able to share that with strangers, this conversation that you and I are having, To me, that's something special about this business too.
Of all the negative stuff that's connected to this business, at the end of the day, we are drivers. We are brothers and sisters, really. Like we should be looking out for each other. We should be able to help each other and that. And I've been to places and I've been struggling. And some guy, I've never met him before. And he'll come over and just start helping. Just
Yeah.
because we're just fellow drivers. And like you're trying to back into a space in a truck stop and it's tight and you're like the last space and it's a pain and somebody will jump out of the truck and they'll give you a hand and that. And it's nice when they do. Not everyone does it, but it's nice when they do because we're all doing the same job. So if it makes a little bit easier to help somebody, because I've had it, like somebody helped me and I make sure to pass it forward, whether it's advice, like somebody's given me advice when I first started driving. I give advice to new drivers. Now, I remember it was a chap I was delivering to a cash and what is it, like a cash and carry, which is a sort of supermarket for small independent shop owners rather than just retail,
Right.
sort of general public and that. And he'd only been driving a couple of weeks. He was doing what they call multi-drop. So his trailer, he had a huge gaps between pallets. So I showed him how to bring the internal straps forward and how to strap it. So if you have to hit the brakes, someone pulled out in front of you, those pallets aren't going to go forward because he's not seen that. Nobody up until that point has taken the time to tell him. Somebody, when I first started, reached out and helped me. So it's my turn to reach out and help someone new. And I think if more drivers did that, then maybe this industry wouldn't have such a negative image.
Amen to that. That's where the brotherhood and the sisterhood of this business still lives. It's up to us to do it. We have to do it for others.
There is a little bit of a selfish reason for sometimes helping drivers in is because I don't want them to hit my truck.
there's a self-preservation motive sometimes that comes into play too, that's for sure. I'd rather meet you by helping you than filling out an insurance claim form with you.
Yeah, there is that. But it's, as I said to a young driver, he was fretting because he was backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. He couldn't get it straight and that. And I just turned around and said to him, don't worry. Points don't mean prizes in this game. If it takes you 20 minutes, it takes you 20 minutes. But
Yeah.
we don't hit anything and we've done it fine. Because my first time that I had to put it on a dock or a bay, and that's my first time of ever properly reversing a truck. It took me 17, 18 attempts to get it straight. And there are even days now where what would be an easy reverse, and I still make a mess of things.
Yeah.
So like, there's no shame in, like I said to this kid, is like, there's no shame in like not getting it first time because you will learn, and that's how we all did it. And don't listen to Johnny Super Trucker over there. I did it in one go and it's that the other, because the next reverse he'll go to and he'll make an absolute pig's ear of it.
Yeah.
As long as you don't hit anything, then you've 99% of the work is already done.
100% agree. Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate meeting you.
It's been a pleasure.
This has been the Channel 19 Experience. If it's about trucking, we're talking about it. All uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories. But we talk about the world of trucking today, too. Everything from legislation to lane changes in the industry. We got it covered. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back at the ranch soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media at Channel 19 Experience and the website at www.channel19experience.com. That's channel and the numbers 19. See you down the road.